All right. Welcome, everyone, to Recovery Unplugged Live. I'm John Spalding with GNBC Live. And this is a special episode. We have two episodes, and then we're going to do a screening of Letters to Daniel on August 9th
Ninth.
at 2. What's up, Amy?
Nothing much. We found out at Indie Gathering we came in second place in drama,
All right.
and uh, yeah, but I won it first. But
Now, didn't you yell at someone for saying
yes,
complaining about
I
second?
did. Do as I say, not as I do. uh, no, but I found out what film beat me, and it really didn't shock me because I'd seen him winning at other festivals, getting prizes for it. It's for a film called Whisper, and it's based on a true story like mine, but it's based on a case during the 1970s of a well-to-do African American family that was found murdered in their home, and it uses found footage in a way to try to solve the mystery.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I'm not saying I know what my film's flaws were. So, but if I have to be beat by a film, I'd like to be beat by a film that covers something that it uses footage like letters and pictures from the victim's father and husband. So, I if I have to be beat, I'd rather be beat by a film that is like that. That is that good. I want someone who's better than me to win if they were better than me.
Mhm.
Um, got into Hollywood Dreams. Got notification of that. I got notification. Got into Annabelle Monroe's most important films, and she's going to showcase us and screen our film separate in the Overflow Theater to showcase it because it does have some sound problems. So if it's not being shot, and we're going to screen to distributors and producers and stuff like that, and if we don't, they're the sound problems are a problem, but they're not so bad if you don't have other films that have fantastic sound up against it.
Mhm.
So she's going to showcase it, and if you'll just I talked to Annabelle, and she said Huntley is slowly getting better, and Shane knows what that's about. And I told you. So if everybody out there, because Annabelle's the sweetest person in the world, and her and Huntley are so great because I met them at my first AOF in 2016, and they were so nice to me. um, and she was going to be the guest tonight, but luckily Demetrius and Shane came through and have agreed to be our guests tonight.
Yeah, so big
Nice.
prayers out for Huntley and definitely for Annabelle. And welcome Shane and Demetrius to the show.
And also,
Hello.
5 weeks. You have 5 weeks. You can still submit to AOF, Hollywood Dreams, News Fest, New Cinema, my
Conquering
festival,
Disabilities with
Conquering
Film.
Disabilities of Film, and and a bunch of other ones. If you go to noriskfeefest.com, they'll all be listed there, and you can enter multiple. The festivals are held concurrently, and Demetrius, you should submit some merge to AOF.
Okay. Okay.
You do it. Go to No Risk Fee Fest and do it. You
Yeah, it's
what?
on our list. It's on our list to do.
Okay, and the nice thing about No Risk Fee Fest is when you submit it, you don't have to pay a fee up front. You only pay if they accept you into the
Oh,
festival.
nice.
That's
Nice.
why it's no
Yeah,
risk.
that's right.
So now that I've gotten that plug out of the way, so if you want,
Let's get started then.
get started.
Who are you going to tackle first?
Demetrius,
Oh no.
award-winning
So
director
good.
and creator of the sci-fi Submerged franchise. Demetrius Witherspoon. Why don't you tell our audience how we first met and how you initially conceived of this project?
Well, we first met at Imaginarium, and I think for me, it was our third year at Imaginarium, and I met you out in the hallway. I was about ready to leave to go get something to eat, and you's like, "You better stay around for the award ceremony." I was like, "Yeah, sometimes I don't get an award or whatever." But anyway, I stayed, and I won Best Director that night. And you was telling me about the AOF film festival also. So it was an awesome night, and I appreciate you telling me to stay.
You think their award ceremony is nice? You should get a load of an AOF award ceremony.
Yeah, that's what you was saying.
Yeah,
So
you get to go. It's a little different this year because of the COVID,
right,
but it's
right.
still going to be something special. AOF always does it at special. So
Got you. Yeah, most definitely. We're looking forward to putting in for that and everything. And with my Submerged Universe franchise, it started. I got into filmmaking, and I wanted to make a sci-fi film. And I was always into, Star Wars, Stargate, Farscape, pretty much all sci-fi, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, all those things that I grew up with also. And so I started this uh, film first. It's about a lady thrown into a multi-universe, and she has to find her way out and find her daughter. And it was kind of inspired by a homeless lady that would ask for money on the side of the road here in Indianapolis. And I would help when I could on some things, but I was like, what it took for her to be in that situation. And what if she was thrown in a situation where it not only made her stronger physically, but emotionally dealing with certain things. And so that kind of started the story. I mean, that's where she stood majority of the time in a busy intersection. That's where we started our film. We had our actress stand in that same spot. And so it went from there. And I was like, well, I want to make another one. And part of the fuel was that people would say you can't do anything with a short. That's what I used to always hear. And I was like, well, if I make multiple shorts and it's in the same genre and the same subject, then there's something there. It could be a series. And so from there, we did 3 parts. By the time we had probably about 8 people the first time. By the time we got to the third part of the series, Submerge Nairi Reborn, we had 30 people on set. And then that's when WWE wrestler Bishop Stevens, he was starting to really get more acting jobs. And so he came from St. Louis to film with us to have a recurring role in the series. And now he's been on Empire and Netflix movies and doing a lot of movies out in Hollywood. Uh, so it just really bounced off from there. And I was like, well, we want to go further into this universe because of this submerge um, uh, experiment that's being done on different species and multi-universes. And so we went further and talked about Light and her situation of thinking she's the last of her species, but she finds this android and things really get going there. And it's still all in this submerged universe. And the one that we just did is Submerged Blue Star, which is the 5th film in the series. And it's that'll make our season 1. And it just premiered at PopCon. And we're going to do some tweaks and get it ready for AOF and some other things, for Amazon Prime and things like that. So we're super excited, and plus we just now got an animated series based off of my characters, Submerge Craig Conquest, which was animated and written by Tobias said John.
Okay. Submerge, as you said, is actually a series of several shorts.
Yeah,
I saw where you also were planning a feature film version of this and directing it. How does
yeah.
the production of the series differ from preparation of the feature?
Well, it's on a bigger scale, but um, we're really going to look at it as a, a bunch of shorts, 15-minute shorts that you put together.
Like an
And
anthology film?
yeah, yeah, and that's how we're going to kind of break it down. And so I'm looking more toward, because of the booming of streaming platforms right now, VOD, they're looking for more content. So if I just put out a whole film, for me, I think, okay, yeah, well, you have your film, you can put that in there. But if you have a series, then that could be something people can come back, digest a little bit. And so just looking at the way things are going, especially after the COVID, how everything turned up. I mean, Amazon, Netflix, everything, because of people needing content and all these other streaming services. So we're still going to look at it as we'll treat it like a feature film, but we're going to cut it down to streaming uh, uh, segments, or
Okay.
yeah, or shows. So
Okay.
so so we're going that way. And um, it's a lot bigger than all the other ones that we've done.
Okay. So you have also started to merchandise your film project or TV
Yes.
series. Not
Yeah.
every project can do that. How did you do it? What are some of the items that you have for sale? And what tips do you have for your fellow filmmakers on how to make it happen?
Well, my first, uh, I like sci-fi and everything, but I hadn't been to different conventions. And when I got to Gen Con and all the conventions that we've went to, really seeing how not only having a good story, but then the merchandising that goes with that. So I started to look for things that I could um, pay for, and it's not going to break my pockets, to do. And it really doesn't take much anymore, and especially with the internet. There's a lot of companies that you can partner with, and it's not only getting your name out there, but it's getting their name out there also. And so, what we've done, I have a company out of Kansas, and we have Funko Pops
For your
based off our
characters? Oh,
characters.
that's so cute.
Yeah, yeah. This is our newest one, Commander Killgun, Lieutenant Commander Killgun. And so all this works together as part of transmedia that I do. Um, Not only are these characters in my movie, but they're in our comic books, in which a lot of these characters are based off of too, is our comic books that we have now, like this 51X. And so we're bringing it full circle with not the movies, but then also the comics, which expands the story. I don't know if you can see that. And um, and then also the card games. We got a game that is based off of one of my movies, which is called Echo 51. It's the fourth. And matter of fact, we're doing an Indiegogo for this right now, but it was based off of
Yeah, I
the
donated to
game.
that.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And so all this is part of my transmedia um, plan that I use. So I have my film, but all of this helps tell the greater story. And so some people might not be so much into the film, but they're into the comics. But if people read the comics, some of those stories kind of land into the films. So like Blue Star, um, 51X comic book that I just showed, some of that story actually lends to the movie. And so, it's not just having a book that retells the story, but expands on the story. And so people can get submerged in different parts of it. So the novel, the comic books, and the action figures that we have.
Nice. You really have built yourself a little empire there.
Thank you. It's just it's kind of a boyhood thing. You see Star Wars and play with different toys and things, but when you really start to look at it and seeing how people respond to these things, it's nice to have, but it also gives people a piece of what you've created, and it's something special, and it's not sitting in the stores. A lot of it is special ordered, so people are really, they have something, part of something that you've created, and it's special. So I forgot the other part of that question, but
how did you make it happen?
Yes, how did you make it happen? For me, I like the internet and social media, and so I tell the kids all the time, if I had that when I was a kid, I would be a millionaire by now, because the information is free. That's not how we're able to do our films anymore and get it on these platforms. The freedom is there to be able to do that. And so with the internet, there's a lot of people doing custom work, custom action figures and things like that. And also you can go to Fiverr and you can find you an artist that will start to that you can pay and work with them to do comic books. That's how I'm working with people over in the Philippines. I'm working with people in Argentina, or Venezuela also. And they're amazing artists. And so we kind of create a bond there. So part of that is looking at the market and kind of seeing, for my genre, what works. So I do sci-fi fantasy. So what caters to those, to people that are into that. And so I go to Facebook, I look at all the pages that deal with that, and I join them. And then that way I'm able to kind of see what's working and what people are into and how I can expand what I do. And so for everything that I get into, let's say the pops, the comics, the pub glasses with the figures on, which you got that.
I bought your glass. Remember, I said I'd buy something from you. I bought your glass at Imaginarium last year.
Yes, we really appreciate that. So all those things.
My nephew loves, my 7-year-old nephew loves that glass.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we have to get him a comic book so you can check that out too. So I use those avenues to do my marketing and also learn from other people. You're never grow or go to the next level if you don't learn from other people, because you can't know everything. And so working with people from all around the world helps out.
Okay. As you said, recently an animated version of recently you inked a deal for an animated version of Submerged for a distribution deal. How did that come about?
Well, right now I can't go into too much detail on the distribution deal yet, but I started working with Toby Said John, Tobias, sorry, and because she goes by Toby on Facebook, and so we met at at a PopCon convention, and she came to one of my panels where I was speaking about marketing and things like that, and she drew something for us, and I was like, "That's awesome!" So then she did the trading cards that we have, and we had those at the PopCon in Indy the following year, and those went really well. She got a good response off of that, and one day it popped up. She was doing animation, and it was Submerge, my characters. And I'm, I wake up in the morning, I look at Facebook, and she's like, "Oh, look what I'm doing," and I was like, "That's really cool." And she's teaching herself. Okay, so that was the cool thing about that. And the other thing is that it's your characters, that somebody is kind of like a fan, or somebody's taking interest in what you've created. And so once she started really getting further into it, I was like, okay, well, what kind of story do you have? And so we started looking at that, and so I came on to be producer of that. And I really liked where she was going, especially for she hadn't really seen all of my films, and so she really captured a lot of the characters' mannerisms and things, even though she hadn't seen everything, and especially the new characters. And so I was able to help tweak with that. There were some things she wasn't able to do on her computer, so I did the editing. She would draw it out, do all the animation, and I did the editing, sound effects, and producing it and getting it out there. So now we got that distribution deal, and that's all about putting things together and putting it out there. You got to put it out there so people can see it, and see what you're trying to do, and then you never know who's watching. And so you see an opportunity, you got to go for it.
Okay. Okay. And finally, what are your future plans for Submerge?
Most definitely, we are doing the feature film. We got to get past this COVID situation, because I don't want to put anybody in danger, because we got a lot of fight scenes and things like that. So we're probably looking at next year before we start on production. But other than that, we have more comics that are coming out, and also we do have a streaming service, Submerge Universe TV. And so some of the films are up there now. We're going to put the comic books on there. And we also have something else that's especially going to be on there, and I can't really talk about right now. But we got a lot more Submerge things happening.
Look at you. Okay. Well, that's all my questions for now. And our second guest, I met through a previous guest on here, AOF MegaFest founder Del Weston. Shane Borza is an accomplished filmmaker, writer, and life coach, and will be helping to run AOF with his wife, Joyce Yu. Let's just dive right in and talk about your experience as a filmmaker and how AOF has impacted that part of your career.
So, but before I say anything, I just have to say, Demetrius, I'm so excited to hear all your stuff. I was looking everything up while you were talking, and I just put one of the Submerge films that's on Amazon on my watch list. So I'm gonna watch it when we finish the show.
Oh, cool! Thanks.
So as he mentioned, we met through AOF, and I'm really excited because my first AOF was 2013. So this is like our 8th year in a row, I think. And as I've gotten to know Del and his wife and the community better, my wife and I have become more involved. So like we worked last year, I worked with the projectionist to make sure all the theaters were running. And my wife worked the check-in counter downstairs and got people their badges. So we got to meet a lot of people. And as they say, like AOF's like a big community. It feels more like a family of filmmakers, So it's a really cool festival for people to come to. And you end up not just like meeting people that might like help you or be good for your career, but it's like they become friends of yours, and you end up helping each other and inspiring each other. And it's just almost more like a team, which I really like. But the thing I'm really excited about, I just found out, Amy, because I was looking your stuff up earlier. You had a movie called Broken, and this year I have a movie in AOF called The Broken.
Yeah, one of my actors, Brandon, he actually got nominated for like best lead actor in a short at Hollywood Dreams that year for that movie. And I was really excited. He didn't stand a chance of winning because I saw, because I was in a drama block and I saw all the other people he was nominated against, and it wasn't that he wasn't as good as them. It's just that their film had better those films had better production value.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes when you get thrown in and you see some of the people had more resources or money or something, but it's still great to be in there, so congratulations.
The great thing about AOF is that it's kind of like an even playing field. They look for Dell actually just sees stuff in people, because here's the first look at any gathering. They gave me the idea that I could be a filmmaker, but Dell really put it in my head that I was a filmmaker, and Dell just has that bull in a china shop, very charismatic way about him he could probably sell ice water to Eskimo.
That's right. Well, yeah, so that's one of the things that has been really helpful for me so I went to film school in Australia and I went to Stunt Academy and got in with all the stunt people and the fighters and martial artists and all that. So my kind of intro to film came through stunts and action movies. And a lot of the movies that they do, they have a long history of doing like even professional films in Australia are very indie compared to like Hollywood in America, So when I was working on movies, even if they were features and even if they had a budget, like in America, they would consider them like small indie movies, but they were still doing crazy like car crashes and like, because everybody that I knew, they were, I'm an actor, writer, director, producer, stunt guy. So they would all just rotate around, like, hey, so tomorrow we're all going to be on their movie, and then next week they're going to be on my movie, because everyone was all making movies all at the same time, and they all just rotated around. So I learned how to make a movie cheap and fast, but embrace the limitations. So like Demetrius was talking about how he made all these series and he created this universe, because I'm changing what you said, but basically you're like, can't make a feature, so we're going to make this whole universe in all these little parts,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I learned filmmaking in the kind of indie trenches in Australia. So they're like, well, we don't have this and this, but what do we have? So let's lean into the restriction, and instead of having it be a problem, we could say, oh, this is the best thing. We have to be creative. We have to be, well, all we have is 2 locations. Okay, well, we have to come up with a reason why there's only 2 or whatever. So like I worked on a feature zombie movie called Theater of the Dead, because the director in real life was the director of a theater, like a playhouse. And so he said, oh, we could just make a movie in the theater. Why would they only be in the theater? Oh, because they're trying to finish rehearsals before opening night, so they're going to spend all day, all night, because they have a dictatorial, director who's all mad, and we're not going to leave till you get everything right. And what happens? While they're in the theater, the zombie apocalypse happens, and then they can't leave. So again, like, you just embrace the problem of, well, I have access to this building for free. What if we just did the whole movie in this one place? And then you just get creative. So somebody goes to get the pizza, but it's not the delivery guy, it's the zombies. Oh, now the zombies are in the theater, and now all you have to do is just run around I think we did the whole movie in like 5 days. So I really love that. And my hat's off to you, Demetrius. I don't know how you do. I'm really excited to see like indie sci-fi. And that's another thing that I've always felt like, okay, I come from stunts and action. I understand that. I know how to do that. But it's all pretty much practical. Like, unless you have someone like fall off a helicopter or some like big stunt like that, it's pretty much just, if people know how to move right and you have the right safety equipment, you can cheat pretty much any kind of gunfight, knife fight, sword fight, fist fight, whatever you want to do. And
Right.
one of the things they always said in Stunt Academy is stunts happen in real time. So if you pretend to punch someone and they fall on the ground, like it's gonna be like, oh, it's over, you know. So it happens really fast. Yeah. And so I've always trying to embrace that in the types of movies that I make. And when it comes to like the effects and all that stuff, oh, I don't even know how you do that. So I'm really excited to see your stuff. But anyway, Amy, I wanted to bring that back because the reason I became a part of AOF is because so my senior thesis film in college or in film school was called Lesbian Western, because it's an homage to those old Clint Eastwood, you know, Man with No Name movies. Yeah. You know, the guy in the black hat who goes into town, he doesn't want any trouble, but then he ends up saving the girl from the bad guy. Well, it's that, but the guy in the black hat with no name is a girl. And so the girl comes in and saves the girl from the bad guy, and then they like ride off into the sunset together. Well, the actor, the lead female role in that movie had been in a movie that had gone to AOF. So I finished up in Australia and came home to LA. And I was like, hey, everyone in Australia, I'm still working. Once I get some money, I'm going to do the editing. And I got original soundtrack and, you know, all that stuff. It took a while, you know, indie budgets, you do things a month at a time or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, you know, you should submit this movie to the Action on Film Fest because they love stunts and martial arts. And this is a stunt fight movie. And I submitted it. I never heard of it before, didn't know anybody. And I got in. I made posters. I was all excited. I show up, my first AOF ever, 2013. And there's this big, you know, placard on an easel standing up in the kind of foyer when you walk into the movie theater. And it's this hodgepodge of like all these posters. Yeah. And the faces from the Lesbian Western poster was on that. And I was like, what? So I go upstairs to check in. And, you know, you're like, who are you? What's your movie? You say your name. And Dell is like way down the way. And he goes, he's like, Shane War's a Lesbian Western. He's like, I love your movie. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is. And they're like, that's the founder of the festival. I was like, what? So then I got my badge. And on the badge, I mean, this one is from.
I've got all my badges.
This is from last year. So it looks different. But around the corner in 2013, they had little pictures of the posters. And the Lesbian Western poster was in the corner.
Oh, wow.
So every single person that went to AOF, whether they knew it or not, was able to see my poster. So because of that, because he loved that movie, I got award nominations. He put me in his book, The 100 Best Indie Filmmakers of All Time.
Mm.
Wow.
I was able to submit my film to Marshall Con, where I got a number of awards. But the thing that's so interesting is originally what I wanted to do with the movie was do this really dark, heavy, dramatic, like black and white kind of artsy movie. But I didn't have the skill set because it was my first kind of real film. So I did this really stylized, you know, Western-y type movie, you know, widescreen, and everything was sepia toned, and it had that kind of Morricone soundtrack, you know. Well, so now it's the 10-year anniversary this year from when we made the film, or when I wrote it originally. And so The Broken was the working title of Lesbian Western. And so I've redone the movie from scratch in 4:3, black and white, no soundtrack. Like it's the really dark, heavy thriller horror version that I really wanted to make, but I didn't know how because I didn't have the skill set. So to kind of honor where the film came from and to honor how AOF has helped inspire me to become a filmmaker, I'm coming back again with a version of the first film that I ever brought to AOF.
Wow.
Well, you know how it's like, you know how when you're trying to make a film, there will be setbacks. It's just inevitable. And Letters to Daniel was a study in what could go wrong would go wrong. Like at the end of 2015, we were supposed to film it. We had everything ready. We were all cast. We had all our locations. and then our producers flaked out and pulled out, and they were also our crew. So you can't make a movie if you don't have a crew. And it was just so devastating because it was like, this wasn't for me. This wasn't just a movie. This was my life. That's what the movie says, right? And they feel bad. Look, they're not bad people. They're just really flaky. So, so I don't really hold them any ill will. I had other situations where it was just bad. And when I came to AOF, I didn't think I was going to make it because I had gone through a lot of bad stuff from the end of 2015 to about, like, AOF found me when everything was bruised and beat up and right. And the one good thing, I had an agent who was just a liar, but the one good thing she told me to do was to go all in at AOF. So I entered my documentary, I entered 5 scripts, and I got nominations, and they would say stuff like, Del, you come in and Del just knows you and your projects. That's the thing. He goes, "Oh, I love your movie." And there's not a small, you're talking 300 to 400 filmmakers every year. And for him to say, "I know your movie," and then talk about what your movie is about, that is an amazing thing. So, Demetrius, get your film.
I am.
Yeah, join the family.
Year. All right. I can't wait.
But okay, so let's go on to the second question. How many years, you mentioned this, how many years have you been an AOFer, and how did it influence your decision to both move to Las Vegas to help with the running of it and inspire you to write your book?
So yeah, so 2013. So I was in film school 2010 to 2012. So I wrote The Broken. That was the original title. 2010. So it was a 2-year program. So there was kind of, you have a freshman year, senior year. So freshman year, wrote everything, you make some shorts and things. And then your senior year, it's like, okay, you workshop everything, you take all your skills, you make your like senior film. So that's why I didn't put it into AOF till 2013, because you do the film school version, but it's not really like the way you want it. So when I got to LA, 2012, I said, I'm going to save some money and do it, like redo it with good posts and everything. So went to AOF 2013, it's my first year. And I've had a film in AOF every year since then. So this is the 8th year. And last year, Del challenged me to bring a feature. So I have my first feature. Well, it's my second feature I've made, but it's the first feature at AOF. And if I can do a plug,
you can.
And Demetrius, I'm going to challenge you. I'll watch your movie and I'll ask you to watch mine. So I made a feature in Australia. It's called Turbines, and it's on Amazon Prime. So we can both go to Prime and watch each other's stuff.
Got it.
So I really am thankful that I met Del, and that, like you said, Amy, when you walk in and he knows who you are and he knows about your film, he talks about, the part when the guy does the stuff with the thing, like I love, and you're like, how do you know that? Because he does really care. But that growing year to year, walking in, being helpful, I like to give back. I like teams. So like if you're helping me, I'm helping you. That's how I like to do things. So for him to support me, and me to get to know his wife and his kids, and I worked on one of his movies, and like we shot in his house, and again, it just built this family. So last year when he said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come out and work the festival and help us do stuff," so we said, "Okay, well, we're taking a vacation. We're gonna have to like pay to go to Vegas and put ourselves up and do all this stuff, but it taught us so much, and it really got us from someone who was going to the festival to someone who was part of the festival." And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to move here. He had told us for years, you got to come out. It's so much easier than shooting in Vegas. You're a bigger fish in a smaller pond, like you love to climb. There's climbing here, like, on all aspects, like it was really great. And so that was the real beginning of, like you said, the transition. And then getting to know the team, you mentioned Annabelle and
I love Annabelle.
And Harold, who is a great writer.
Oh, he's brilliant.
And this is the great thing about, you mentioned at the beginning that I'm a coach. So just real briefly, because I've been able to work from home the last 2 years and pretty much kind of have my own hours. 2 months ago, Dell asked everybody at a director's meeting, hey, does anyone here have a book? If you do, let me know. We want to make sure we feature it at the Writers Festival. And I had kind of forgotten part of the film festival is a Writers Fest. And so I said, okay, it's June. The festival's in September. I'm going to make sure I have a book. And so I just said, I'm going to commit to my full-time job for the month of June is to write a book. So I did all my coaching and clients and everything kind of around me writing 8 hours a day. And so I knocked out my book in a month. And then 2 weeks ago, my wife on a Sunday night says, hey, you should do like a workbook or something to go with your book. And you can have exercises and you can show people how to fill out production paperwork and like all that stuff that, people need to know, but they don't know how to do. So I was like, so I now have 2 books. I have film notes and I have the film notes workbook. And those are both coming out at AOF because the team has inspired me to do more than I thought, not just in film, but just in creating. So I'm really thankful for all of them.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you have started putting out video content as well. What inspired you to do that, and what will future video content contain?
So I have been doing kind of some sort of video stuff for a long time. Actually, my first way I got into film was a friend of mine, because we're rock climbers. We just we didn't even know what we were doing. We didn't even have smartphones. It was like, those little digital cameras, and they would shoot video like 30 seconds at a clip,
Yeah.
back in like 15 years ago. So we just started oh, we should, we were totally like Point Break style, Bill and Ted, oh, dude, we're going to film each other. It's going to be excellent, really ridiculous. And we would go out and shoot each other doing that stuff. And we would figure out how to make little videos, and we would put them on MySpace back in the day, and then YouTube and whatever. And so that was the beginning of doing video content. And then throughout the years, I've done kind of web series, behind the scenes. So I'll make a short film or a movie, and I take all those little clips and I put it together and go, here's a little 20 episode, 5-minute a piece, behind the scenes to show how we did the stunts or how we did the chase, or this is the big bloody fight scene with the knife, or because part of that was me growing up watching all the behind the scenes on DVDs. And that was how I learned how to do stuff, listening to, oh, here's a DVD, has 3 different commentary tracks. So I guess I'm going to watch all 3 of them,
Right.
So I wanted to kind of give that back. And it made me feel more like a filmmaker to say, I've got a gallery of still photos with me doing an interview over it, which, I just made myself. But if one person watches that and is inspired to make their own stuff, then I'm just going to keep making things. So that's how I got into doing video. And that's why I love to make it. And that's why I'm going to keep making it.
Okay. You went from planning to write a book to having it ready for publication in about 6 weeks. Can you tell us about your process of getting there?
So the thing that's great for me, again, to go back to being an indie filmmaker with no budgets and stuff, is it taught me, I've literally been on some movies where, so I was in a World War I movie. I can't remember the name of it because they changed it. It's on Amazon Prime as well. And they dug trenches. We had a cast of 100 people. It was a pretty big movie. And they did the whole thing in 3 weeks. Just because they didn't have the money to shoot any longer than that. So we were forced to shoot 5 or 10 pages every day to include explosions and stunts and oh, we have to redress the field, which means you have to fill in all the holes. So it just taught me, you have to hit the ground running, you have to work hard, you have to just do more than you think you can, So that 20 years of doing that on set taught me, okay, well, if I want to have a book done by August 1st, I have to have the draft done in the next 2 weeks, So I just said, okay, I have all these ideas for like 20 years I've been thinking about. I just never wrote them down. So I did it. What I teach people in the book, like, okay, you have an idea for a movie, just write it out for 2 or 3 pages and see what happens. No structure, just figure it out. And then from there, do a one page synopsis of your movie. So that's what I did with the book. Okay, what do I want the book to be? Okay, there's gonna be a writing section, there's gonna be a directing section, and a production section. Okay, so I'll just write them out like a page each. There's my outline. Okay, what sections are in the writing? Okay, write down all the main points. And then I said, okay, I'm just gonna write out each one of those things. And then after 2 weeks, I had a couple pages on each section. And then you just start expanding them, you rearrange them. And after like 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, I got a pretty good rough draft because I write fast. And that's one of the big things I would say to people. If you want to write something, doesn't matter if it's a script or a book, just sit down and write it. Don't give yourself any limitations. Don't worry about how good or bad it is. Just keep going until you get to the end. And then take a break, walk away, do something else, maybe a week, a day, whatever. And then the second draft, that's when you sit down and go, this is crap. And you completely rewrite it and you throw it out, or you change the whole order or whatever. But don't do that in the rough draft. That's why it's a rough draft. It's rough. Just get all the ideas on paper. So in the first 2 weeks is the rough draft. I started from nothing. I just threw, a lot of people call it vomiting on the page. You just put everything down. And then the next 2 weeks, fine cut, like to use movie terms, okay, let's figure out how to turn this into a story. And then the last 2 weeks was, okay, let's edit it. I had 3 or 4 different people read it. And I was like, you got 2 weeks to read this book and give me an edit. And so luckily I had that team and they were able, there's a typo, this doesn't make sense. You should switch the order of this, things I didn't think of. And that's how I went from no book to finished book, rough draft 2 weeks, fine cut 2 weeks, final draft 2 weeks. And I had a team of 4 people read it and give me notes. Nice. So if I didn't have the team, I wouldn't have been able to do it. If I didn't have the background on set, teach me how to work hard, I wouldn't have done it. And if I didn't know film structure, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Because it basically follows the 3-act structure. The book's in 3 parts. It's just instead of act 1, act 2, it's act 3. Act 1 is how to write a movie. Act 2 is how to direct a movie. And act 3 is the pre through post of set.
Nice.
Okay, finally, what is on the horizon next for you?
So I'm going to AOF with my first feature ever. So I'm excited. I'm going to AOF with my first book ever. So I'm excited. And I'm going with a different version of the first movie I ever brought to AOF. So all that's coming up in September. So I'm really excited for all of that.
Yeah, my biggest fear is that the governor goes, I'm shutting everything down. And
don't say it.
So far, if Dell can help it, there will be a festival. I want it to be because I work, I'm excited because I'm bringing my first feature there, and it was my passion project. And from blog to memoir to documentary to script to film, it took 7 years. Mm-hmm. And and it was shot to be seen on a movie screen. It wasn't shot for TV. Now, Mark protected the pan and scan, but it's actually shot in cinema, like it's shot for the cinema. So that's where I want to see it. Now we're going to go round robin. Okay. And either one of you can take this first question first. We're going to pivot and talk about mental illness and mental health. Have you ever been directly or indirectly affected by mental illness? And Demetrius, you can go first.
Not me personally, but I do have someone in my family. So one of my uncles. And so really to see his progression and how it can affect everybody around him. It's it's just something you kind of deal with on a daily basis, and yeah.
Okay. Shane?
Well, my father was an alcoholic, and that was something that not only was difficult, for him, but provided a lot of stress and impact on the family. So we haven't had necessarily any kind of clinical mental illness in like myself or my sister or my mom, but one of the reasons for him passing away so early in life was because of his kind of lifelong struggle with that addiction.
Okay. Even though more people are talking about mental illness and mental health awareness, do you think things have actually gotten any better when it comes to addressing the issue of stigma in the industry? And Shane, you can take that one first.
Well, I think the first step is to have the conversation, because it takes a long time to go from not talking about something to talking about something. So I think that is a good step, but I think that's just the first step. And then I think the next step will be taking action. So I'm hoping that the length of time from like, oh, we know it, but we're not going to talk about it, to talking about it, I hope that the next stage is much shorter. But I think the next stage still needs to happen.
Okay. Demetrius?
And I think some things have been addressed, but not in such a deep way. But I think that's where independent filmmaking comes into hand, because it can be addressed more. And we have the platforms to put this information out there so everybody could be aware of it, even more than any time in the world. So we don't always have to wait on Hollywood to address it. It could be us as independent filmmakers putting it out there, because if you look around, a lot of the platforms are independent films.
Okay. When working on a movie set, have either of you had occasion to witness an individual in mental or emotional distress? And if so, how did you handle it? Either one of you, jump in.
Well, I have seen people in emotional distress, but in my experience, it's been because an actor has had to do a very kind of tumultuous scene, whether it's like some kind of an attack or some kind of verbal abuse in the scene, and they had to kind of go into a place in themselves that they could have the like reaction, the breakdown or the sobbing or the whatever it is, and then they need kind of help coming back out of it. I've had people literally run out. I've seen, not that I was the director, but I was an AD for a long time, and I would see people a couple times, like they would run off set and they have to go like hide somewhere and be alone, and to let me know, not coming from a performance background, how hard it is sometimes to go in and out of some of that emotion. And so I think that is just a small amount of what people that experience that in real life go through every day, though.
Okay, so Demetrius?
No, not really. I've seen anything.
Well, I'll say when I worked on Letters to Daniel, and that's about my battle with bipolar disorder, we did a scene where my character has an anxiety attack, and there's no dialogue, but Megan, she had to run, and she really went to a place that when we said cut, she really had to take a minute.
What? No, but I feel like I'm doing my part though. When you start talking about the festival and I do my little gangster lean like this, and they can see the they can see the show name and they can see the name of the festival. So, but no, I definitely appreciated the perspective tonight of having both of the guests on. Demetrius, I really appreciate kind of what you're doing with your product and taking that transmedia approach. I've worked with one of the actors that Amy mentioned, Brandon Bell, here, and we have a web series called The Connected. And our transmedia approach was always to take the characters from that crime series and um, turn it into a comic book, not necessarily a card game, but a comic book, and potentially like one of those like just app-based web games where you can earn points and watch videos and do tokens and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely like that. And then Shane, with your experience in Australia, is that right? And kind of their approach, their like kind of team-based approach, that reminds me a lot of like indie communities in the United States. Is like, but that's really usually like either city or county or state-based. Is like Cleveland especially operates very similar to what I heard you describe, how the Australian community does that, and then just hearing about your approach to writing and things like that. So I think it was a great conversations all the way around, Amy, and yeah. The other thing I like is the family vibe from the AOF festival, and then AOF Megafest. Actually, it's like a bunch of festivals, right, Amy? I don't want to get it wrong. But then the other one is Demetrius has to enter and submit to the No Risk Fee Fest. And the family atmosphere that like we will be able to have people that come on this show, the live show. Now your show that you talked about for your Indiegogo is more of a kind of a in-person talk show, like you're filmed, traditional talk show, and you edit it and send it out. This is live, anything can happen. Excuse me. I started as the line producer, but the role wasn't very well defined for that, so I ended up as a key grip. And then I was the dad. I became an actor, and I started off with 3 scenes and 6 lines. I ended up with 1 scene and 1 line. I believe it was because of my performance, but yeah. But thank you guys so much for coming on. I look forward to hearing updates from you guys too as we go forward. And so we'll have the VOD out on Facebook and YouTube, and hope you guys share it. But I appreciate you guys coming on and being a part of the show.
Nine, or I have to do this at 9. I'm like, who? I was like, I knew you had a lot accomplishments with the creation of that universe, and
well, most definitely, I appreciate you having me on here. It's such an honor, and to meet so many other talented, creative people. That's what it's all about, you know. And so, yeah, when I was riding, I seen your name pop up on my telephone, and of course, you know, I wasn't handling my telephone; it was just on my dash. And once I got to a stoplight, you was like, "Can you do this tonight?" It's like, "Sure." That's when I'm up at 9. That's where creatives are up. So
okay, yeah. And Shane, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I'm so glad. This has been great, and I echo what Dimitri said. It's great to make connections, and I'll tell you one last thing that we were joking about last year at AOF, because so many people were like, "This is my 4th year. This is my 3rd year, or whatever." You know, like it's like
Yeah.
Hotel California, because once you check in, you can't ever leave.
No.
wow.
It's like, right. So also plug everybody, August 9th, 2 p.m. special screening the letters to Daniel on this page on Amy Unplugged. Host a watch party, because we want to get as many views as possible. I've got this my manager is shopping it to do it at a bigger budget, but you know, with COVID kind of shut everything down, and if Hollywood is doing anything right now, it's trying to make good on the 2020 stuff or the 2019 stuff they signed up for. So that's why I'm like trying to be proactive and do the talk show and do it as get a better camera than this.
No, it can be done.
So do you have any last words, John?
No, I thought you were going to close it out. That's great. So everyone, listen. Tune in next Monday. We're going to have another special Recovery Unplugged live with who?
Tony Acree.
With Tony Acree. How do you spell that?
TonyAcree.
All right.
And he is an author, publisher. He got a 6-figure. He owns the publishing house that several of my books are at. He got a 6-figure offer to buy them out. He turned them down. He says, when it stops being fun, I'll stop doing it. and he's a screenwriter, and he and he's like got his project, The Hand of God. It's got actors Josh Duhamel attached and Keith Daniels, and right now they're looking for funding. So I think they got the director they wanted too. So we'll see.
Good deal. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning
So,
in to Recovery Unplugged Live. We will see you next Monday.
all right. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good night.